Hello everyone. The jungle is a mysterious place full of dangers and mysteries. Despite all the research, some jungles still haven't been explored by humans, while many amazing things can be found there. Giant plants, destroyed cities, the remains of ancient civilizations, mythical rivers. Have we got you intrigued? Then let's take a look at the strangest discoveries from the jungle. Let's get it on. Whale. There are things you don't expect to see in the jungle, and a whale is definitely one of them. In the forest of the island of Marajo near the beach of Araruna, Brazil, biologists found the carcass of an 11-meter-long whale. Mysteriously, the marine mammal ended up 15 meters away from its natural habitat. No injuries were found on its body either. Perhaps no one would have ever known that a huge whale was lying in the middle of the forest had it not been for the flocks of birds hovering over the body. A team of 10 biologists managed to get to the whale in the mangrove only at the second attempt. Turned out the whale was quite young, about a year old. Moreover, it was a humpback whale, a very rare species to see there at this time of year. Humpback whales usually live closer to Antarctica and prefer not to travel north. Scientists have suggested this baby whale may have migrated with its mother between the two continents, but got lost on the way. Most likely, the whale tried staying close to the shore, and the tide, which had been quite strong for a few days, simply picked the whale up and threw it inland, right into the mangrove. Rafflesia. On the islands of Sumatra and Borneo, as well as in some other areas of Southeast Asia, you can find an unusual plant called Rafflesia. It looks like a huge flower, but in fact it is a parasitic plant that exists at the expense of other creatures. After maturing, the bud opens, producing a stinking odor similar to that of decomposing meat. This way, Rafflesia attracts flies for pollination and scares off people with weak stomachs. The Rafflesia flowers are remarkable for their enormous size too. Some species can reach a diameter of up to 1 meter and weigh up to 8 kilograms. Rafflesia was first discovered in the rainforests of the southwestern part of Sumatra by a local guide working with Dr. Joseph Arnold on an expedition in 1818. The stinking plant was named after Sir Thomas Stamford Bingley Raffles, the leader of the expedition. Do you think he was pleased? Forest people. You're probably familiar with the stories of Mowgli and Tarzan, boys who lived in the jungle among wild animals. But sometimes these stories are real. Van Taan and his 2-year-old son Van Lang were trapped in a US air raid in 1972. Their village was destroyed, so Van Taan took his son and headed for the jungle, where they hid for 40 years. Even when someone showed up nearby, the hermit family tried to avoid them and go as far as possible inside the forest. They remained hidden for more than 40 years. Father and son lived far from civilization in homemade huts, wore loincloths, ate fruits, hunted rats, and cultivated corn. In 2013, one of their relatives found them and suggested moving back to their native village, but the hermits refused. The family decided to return to civilization only a few years ago, when the elderly man experienced health problems and needed medical help. Now, father and son live in a small house and work the land. Van Lang is considering starting a family too. However, he is poorly educated and doesn't know many things, but he's eager to learn something new. Boiling river. Can you imagine a river where the water is so hot that it literally boils? Hardly, but such a river does exist in the Amazon's tropical wilderness in Peru. Surprisingly, the world only learned about the boiling river in 2011 thanks to Peruvian explorer Andres Rutho, while the locals have long known about it. Its name is Shane Timpishka, which means boiled with the heat of the sun in the local tongue. Of course, hot springs can be found on all continents except Antarctica, well, at least for now, but only in Peru you can find a whole river filled with hot water. The Peruvian boiling river is 25 meters wide and about 6 meters deep in the deepest part. The boiling part of the river extends for more than 6 kilometers. The water temperature ranges from 45 to 100 degrees Celsius. Animals who accidentally fall into the river in particularly hot areas will inevitably die. The locals believe the water in the river is so hot because it was heated by a mythical snake, but the truth is much simpler. There is a hot spring at the bottom of the river whose water mixes with the cold water of the river. Sigiriya. From afar, it seems that Sigiriya, or Lion Rock, is just a mountain in the middle of the jungle, but it's much more than that. According to an ancient Sri Lankan chronicle, the rock was chosen by King Kasyapa for its new capital. He built his palace on the top of the rock and decorated its sides with colourful frescoes. On a small plateau halfway up the slope of the rock, a gate in the form of a huge lion was built. Unfortunately, the capital and the royal palace were abandoned after the death of the king, and from the 5th to the 14th century, it was used as a Buddhist monastery. Only in 1831 was Sigiriya discovered by the rest of the world. The mysterious rock fortress quickly attracted the attention of antiquarians and archaeologists. Researchers assumed the rock was a huge picture gallery, or even the largest picture in the world. Unfortunately, most of the drawings are lost forever. Another unique element of Sigiriya is its mirror wall. It was made of brick and covered with white plaster, polished to the point where the king could see his reflection as he passed by. There were also unique gardens, which are considered to be some of the oldest landscape gardens in the world. Today, Sigiriya is open to tourists and enjoys great popularity, despite the fact that it takes hours to climb up there. Stone spheres. These stone spheres or stone balls were found in Costa Rica at the end of the 1930s. You can find all kinds of stones in nature, but these were perfectly round. The spheres range from a few centimeters to over 3 meters in diameter and weigh up to 20 tons. The stone balls were found by accident too. Some workers were clearing an area for a banana plantation and suddenly came across these strange objects. Of course, they assumed there was gold inside the stones and even cracked a few balls open before the authorities intervened. To attract tourists, these spheres were transported to museums and installed on city squares. According to one version, the stone spheres were once lined up in front of the chief's houses, but their exact significance remains unknown. Most likely, the spheres were made with stone tools and then polished with sand. It is believed that the stones were first created around the year 600, but most of them date back to the year 1000. The spheres belong to a culture which disappeared after the Spanish colonization of America. Zombie insects. In the jungle, you can find not only mysterious artifacts, but also truly frightening living creatures. Hell yeah, fire! For example, fungi. What, you don't find them scary? Well, that's only because you haven't heard of a certain Mr. Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. It is a special kind of fungi that parasitizes on ants, literally turning them into zombies. Usually, the spores of the fungus get on the body of the ants and germinate inside them. During this process, certain alkaloid substances are released into the body of the ants, forcing the unfortunate insects to obey the parasite completely. Ants affected by this fungus leave their anthills and wander off alone, looking for a more suitable place to live for their masters. After all, this is the final purpose of the fungus. With the help of the zombie ant, it tries to get to a better place to keep growing. The fungus needs to live at a certain height too, with a proper temperature and humidity, so it commands the ant to find the perfect spot. But even when the ant reaches its destination, its host doesn't let it go. The insect dies, and the fungus grows out of its head, forming a box of spores to infect other ants. Mound-building termites. It seems that countless termites have worked hard in northeastern Brazil for thousands and thousands of years. The results of their efforts are approximately 200 million mounds, occupying a vast area of land approximately the size of the United Kingdom. The mounds are evenly spread over an incredible 230,000 square kilometer area of dry tropical forest. These amazing mounds were first discovered by biologist Roy Funch in the early 1980s. At the time, the researcher wrote a lot about the discovery for a popular scientific journal in Brazil, but for some unknown reason, other scientists weren't interested in this discovery. Funch assumed that the ancient termites built about 90 million mounds, but recently other scientists have discovered that there are 200 million of them. They were also able to determine the age of the strange constructions, about 4,000 years. It's hard to believe that this huge number of ancient hills remained unnoticed for so long. However, the geographical location is partly to blame. Local people thought that termite mounds were a part of the landscape and didn't see anything unusual in them. But the most striking feature of the mounds is that they are all located at the same distance from each other. Why? Well, so far, scientists have no answer to this question. City of the Monkey God. Lovers of the ancient world are well aware of La Ciudad Blanca, a mythical white stone settlement, also known as the City of the Monkey God. Abandoned and forgotten, it has been lying in ruins somewhere in Honduras for 5 centuries. All you have to do is find it, without dying in the dense rainforest. In 1939, the adventurer Theodore Maud claimed to have found the mysterious city, but never revealed its whereabouts. Maud feared for the safety of the artifacts and planned to return to White City, but died before making it back. For several centuries, researchers from all over the world have been trying to find the ruins of this forgotten civilization. In 2012, the area where La Ciudad Blanca may have been located was inspected from a plane for a whole week, and something similar to a pyramid and the remains of buildings were discovered. A few years later, an expedition explored one of the 2 large areas discovered during this survey. 10 scientists, including Honduran and American archaeologists, anthropologists, engineers, as well as documentary filmmakers, support personnel, and soldiers of the Honduran Special Forces took part in the expedition. The team examined and mapped all the remains of La Ciudad Blanca that were found. However, the scientific community still argues whether these ruins are indeed the city of the monkey god. Meanwhile, the searching continues. Who knows